So Janae did it was I guess, a work session think tank type thing that we did in July, I believe. Wasn't it in July? June, end of June. And one of the topics that came up was, would a 4-day work week benefit Rio Blanco County financially, and would that make sense? So we had a team of people that got together to kind of work on different aspects of it. It included HR, facilities, budget and finance, public information, the legal department. And what we did was gathered research from other counties in Colorado and other information to find out, how they see things going and does it work and that type of thing. And would it support shifting to a 4-day business week? In the presentation, the way it's worded is assuming that we're going to go this way. This is just, it made it easier for topic of discussion. So certainly no decisions have been made. It was just a direction to research it. But in the wording, it's going to say, if we did this, then, this is the plan. This is how we'd move forward with it. So in that vein, most Monday through Friday public services would shift to Monday through Thursday. All 7-day and 24/7 hour services would be unchanged. Some of the benefits that we found in researching it may include recruitment and retention of employees, definite work-life integration where you have more time, for that separation between your work time and your lifetime activities, that type of thing. So it balances that out. There is an opportunity for longer service hours. So not necessarily taking away a day, but maybe you add hours in the early morning, later at night, where people can access those services who may work Monday through Friday. There's also some sustainability type issues and also cost savings. One of our things was to do an employee survey just to see where the employees were at on this as an initial kind of, if we did this type of thing, what would it look like? What is your interest? I think it's important to note, if you kind of look at the graph here, there were 4% of the employees that were surveyed. And again, the surveys were limited to, Carly, help me out.
We did not survey Road and Bridge or Sheriff's Office. I believe we got everybody else.
Okay, so that kind of gives the topic on that part of it. So 4% of the employees were not interested, 4% were neutral, 9% were somewhat interested, and 92% of the employees surveyed indicated that they were interested in a 4-day work week. So, and then if you look at that, 83% were highly interested. So if you look at the other factor to that is what percentage were part-time versus full-time employees. We had an 85-15 there split. Now, the next thing that came up, and this actually, when we first started talking about it, we just talked about a 4-day work week and at 10-hour days. But what came out of one of our conversations with another county is they said they found a lot of their employees wanted to do like kind of a hybrid, where basically, okay, I'm too tired to work 4 10s, but maybe I could do 4 9s, or maybe I could do 4 8s. And so we posed that question also, is if RBC were to implement a 4-day work week, what would you choose? 79% chose the 4 10s, 2% chose the 4 9s, and 19% chose the 4 8-hour workdays. So again, that would decrease their working time, and also that would save money on the budget side. The other important question is, the employees were surveyed, would a 4-day work week negatively interfere with any current arrangements you have? 94% said no, only 6% said yes, it could possibly impact them. On that survey, you also have a little handout here, the briefing paper. So on the top of the 3rd page, hypothetical financial impact, do you see that? Okay. Janae, I'm going to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, to kind of walk through what you, as the hypotheticals. And again, this was if some employees decided to go with a different hour structure.
Okay, so I took kind of an average wage. I think it was $16.50 $18.40 or something like that. Included benefits in there, so 18 something total with FICA, Medicare, all of that fun stuff. So currently, I excluded all exempt employees, right? And then excluded some department heads out of this conversation. Of course, I excluded anybody who already is part-time, right? We're looking at going to a 4-8 schedule or a 4-9 schedule. They're already in one of those schedules, possibly, correct? So out of that, that really leaves about 25 employees is an estimate, okay? So if you take about 19%, since they said 19% of surveys said that they would be willing to go to a 4-8 schedule, that's about 4.75 FTEs, let's just say. So I calculated based off of that wage what it would be if they stayed full-time compared to going to a 4-8 or 32-hour week schedule, okay? I did the same with the 2% for the 36 hours per week. So your cost savings around there, if you did implement this and if the 19% did say yes and the 2% did say yes, you're looking at a cost savings for the whole year about $38,700. And that's based off of that average wage, so it could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, depending on if even your, department heads or elected officials allow a 4-8 or a 4-9 schedule. So this is kind of all hypothetical, but just to give some numbers, that's kind of maybe where we're looking at. Does that make sense? Okay.
Going back to the survey a little bit, one of the questions that Carly came up with, who actually did the survey, did a great job on it and rounded them up, is having a 4-day work week at RBC would improve employee morale. 78% of the employees agreed with that statement. Having a 4-day work week at RBC would negatively impact the ability to serve the public. 76% of the employees disagreed with that statement. So meaning they felt like they could still provide the service to the public even without that Friday, if it was a Friday that you chose to close the physical building. Having a 4-day work week at RBC would potentially offer cost savings to RBC. 71% of the employees agreed with that. Part of the survey contained a little area for them to, for anyone to write a comment of what they, wanted to throw out there. And we had a wide variety, A lot of employees were excited, again, stating more time for self-care. It's like a built-in mental health day. You get to spend more time with family. Flexibility for employees. One of the specific quotes was, this could help employees with making appointments for their families without taking extra time off. It matches the school district schedule, which was another very common topic that came up. There were definitely some concerns. Child care before and after school. This would create a daycare nightmare trying to find someone for the mornings and a couple hours in the afternoon, especially if you mix that with longer days. If you're going to try, let's say, a 7:30 to 5 schedule, or 7 to 5 or 7 to, you could do it 6 to 4. Whatever you choose to make those hours, you could do that, but it will have an impact on childcare, especially if you have young children that need to catch the bus, that type of thing. There were definitely some questions about whether someone would be as productive and effective on a 10-day or a 10-hour workday versus an 8-hour workday. Another comment that came out was, in the winter, employees would come to work and leave in the dark, which is definitely a drawback. The 4/10 is a long day with usually only a half-hour lunch. You could be pretty tired by Thursday. One of the things that we got from the other places that have done this is a lot of them say that they do the 4/10s, but in a modified schedule that allow employees to maybe take an hour lunch, but then they work maybe longer on one day than a 10-hour shift, or maybe they split that up, or again with the 36 hours or the 32 hours. You don't have to be pigeonholed, and that was one of the things they said, you don't have to be pigeonholed on what those hours are going to be. You could custom make a schedule to each employee as long as your department or your, office is covered and staffing for what you feel. Like if you don't have any traffic in the mornings, maybe you push everybody to later afternoons and they don't take a lunch because of that, or, but another factor is potential savings could be mitigated if employees are tired and errors increase. Impact to the public. One of the quotes that came from the survey was, "We have always noticed how little customer traffic there is on Fridays. So many people are out of town. It's not practical to be open on most Fridays." Another comment was, "We work for the taxpayers who pay our salaries. We need to be open to serve them." And another comment was, "It's a give and take. 10 hours a day allow people to access their services at a time more suited to them. However, a compressed work week takes away a possible day," which is true. Those are all true statements. Some employee suggestions that also came out from the survey was, one of the common things was consistent hours among the departments. Right now, we do have some departments that have modified hours that if the public wants to access it, there's, it's kind of, some open at 8:30, some open at 8, some close at 4:30, some close at 5, or whatever that may be. There were several comments about that would be to make those hours standard across the board, no matter what it is you decide, but make those hours consistent for the public. There's also the option of remote work when an option for limited hours comes up. That was another thing that a lot of the larger communities did with their 4-day work week, was having people work from home using their, laptop, and which we're all pretty much, I don't know of anyone working from home right now. Do have anybody working from home. So, that might be a consideration. You might want to consider that. That would also provide, if you had like a supervisor or something that, monitored emails on Friday, to say, okay, wait, this is something that can't wait. Again, your emergency services, and I should have covered that a little earlier in there, who was not included. If you look on the very first page of the briefing paper, the departments that we proposed that this would take effect for would be GIS, serving and planning, IT and communications, building, facilities, clerk and recorder, treasurer and public trustee, assessor, the legal department, emergency management, natural resources, sales and use, budget and finance, public information and program manager, White River Roundup, public health, Department of Human Services, and human resources. I forgot them originally. So this is really what the 410s would affect. The departments that are included in this list, but would also have 24-hour emergency coverage, would be IT and communications, emergency management, and Department of Human Services. So they may be on call. They would have to work that out from each department, whether they're going to, pass around, who takes that responsibility, and how that payment structure would be something that, Janae and Laura would have to address if we move forward. Departments not included, for obvious reasons, would be the sheriff's office, dispatch, detentions, and road and bridge. Now, road and bridge has actually kind of worked on a 410 schedule, but they're such a different, unique animal that we did not include them for the purpose of this presentation.
I'm here to support. Don't throw me in the flood.
Okay, Scott's here to support me. Go, Scott. No, he's just being proactive, so he's already got it down. So that was one of the things that, those departments would be the ones that would generally be affected. Let's see, remote work, one option. Okay, so again, with those departments, being able to accommodate a flexible scheduling would probably appeal to the majority of employees. And again, the savings, if it was a 410, 4.9, or 4.8. I will say there was one county that we surveyed, and what they did is they went to 4 8-hour work days for everyone. No, 4 9-hour. It was I'm trying to think. Was it the 9-hour or 8-hour? They went to.
I thought it was 8.
Oh, 8. Okay, so they basically went across the board, like we were talking a furlough day. They just basically cut everybody down to 4.8.
2 hours a week, 20%.
For a budget. But the way that they did that, they did go to the Monday through Thursday schedule. So again, there's so many options out there and ways that you can address this. Child care impacts, which we've kind of mentioned a little bit before. we were kind of trying to be creative and thinking of outside the box. Is there any way we could address that issue? One idea came up that was like maybe an on-site morning care where we'd allow parents to bring their children with them in the morning until the school bus could run. So this would be specifically school-age children, not, you know, preschool or under. We could also communicate with the Meeker School District and possibly Rangeley School District to secure a school bus stop at the courthouse or at the main office, so that those kids would be picked up right outside instead of waiting out on a corner at, you know, early in the morning. Would it be possible to have a room in the courthouse for like a child care room where kids could come in, parents could pretty much drop them off, and someone would watch those kids until they get on the bus? Again, you're talking maybe an hour, but again, don't know, just throwing it out there. It was ideas.
Can I have that job?
You want that job? Okay. Lee signed up, and he'll be our designated babysitter.
I think Jeff just volunteered.
Currently, there is after-school care programs available, which through the ERBM, it does cost a parent $5 per day, and the care is available to 5:15 p.m. So that may or may not be a consideration. If you were to set the hours till 6, then you'd have 45 minutes of a child possibly not having care that you'd have to find a place for. If it was a modified schedule at 5:30 or whatever, I mean, so there's a lot of different variations in that. But again, that would be a concern. Is school-age children might not have care, so you'd need to address that. Facilities cost savings. We really had hoped that there would be more on this, but your project manager, Eric Jaquez, did a phenomenal job designing the building, and so it's made it extremely energy efficient. So what you'll find is the final cost savings is going to depend on the extent of participation. If we're able to truly shut down the building, you're going to save on lights, you're going to save on heating and cooling, all those good things. Your savings would also come in the form of the toilet paper, the paper products, water usage, all those types of things. The cleaning staff wouldn't be cleaning that 5th day, so you would save on those hours. Not those hours, because they'd probably be doing a more extensive cleaning throughout the 4 days. Eric did say one of the probably the most important things would be extending the life of your heating and cooling systems, carpeting, carpet fixtures, things like that, because you're going to have less traffic. Automatically, you have that 1 day off of that. And so you could actually shut down those equipment, and that would extend your life 1 day at a time. So we need to track it year after year. But again, the facility cost savings, unlike some of our counterparts that enacted this, they're saving thousands of dollars because they're bigger facilities and older facilities that aren't as energy efficient. So this goes back to the 4-day week participation, who would be included that, who wouldn't. I've given you the list previous on there. One of the topics that came up about the Fairfield Center is if the Fairfield Center moved to a 4-day Monday through Thursday schedule, you would free up Fridays for events and event setup and things like that. So you're not taking away a day, you're just saying, you know, right now they take, which day off? They take Thursday off, so we'd switch Thursdays and Fridays. So they would still get their meal, but then they would have Friday off where the Fairfield could be rented out for various public events, which is what we ran into, kind of a coordination effort. A lot of people want to use it on Fridays, and it's, you know, the kitchen's booked up at that point. Let's see. Carly, help me out on this one.
That would be ones that would be a little more modified. They would still be operating on a 5-day-a-week schedule. The road and bridge, like Vicki had mentioned, is probably moving to 410, just still operating 5 days a week. District court, we don't have any control over of what they would be doing. We are at the district court.
Since everybody keeps throwing me under the bus, what we were looking at is when we go to our winter schedule, we've always done 5/8 in the past. We're looking at possibly doing 5/10 split Monday through Thursday, Tuesday through Friday. It allows the
410.
it allows the operators trying to get to their route and you have to get more work out of them. But we are looking at that as a possibility.
And your emergency 24/7 would not change, and that was consistent across the state. IT and communications, emergency management, Department of Human Services, Sheriff's Office, and Road and Bridge would all need some 24/7 coverage, whether it's a pager or something like that. Carly, I'm going to let you talk about the job satisfaction survey.
When I did some research onto this, it was that job satisfaction, people who are happier in their job, actually are more productive, they perform better, and they stick around, which all leads to cost savings. One county that they spoke with said per employee it costs them $1 million to train.
1%.
1%.
Yeah, a 1% retention rate cost them over $1 million. So they went from when they started this program, they were at a 13% attrition rate. So they were losing 13% of their employees. They were able to decrease it to 8%. What that equivalent for them was that each 1% of that cost them $1 million in training. And of course that could be, you know, you're highly skilled, but every time you have to retrain somebody for a position, that's going to cost funds. So.
And so when we're looking at keeping people, retaining them, job satisfaction was a major factor. We know Rio Blanco County is facing budgetary issues, and that increasing pay is not an option necessarily. But how else could you compensate and increase satisfaction? And the other types of compensation in the 4-day week came up as another type of compensation that is leads to satisfaction among employees, which would later lead to better performance, productivity, and retention.
And also recruitment too.
And recruitment, yes, those are recruitment's the big one. We're really struggling right at the moment with 13. Oh.
According to you, that's $1 million.
Well, it wasn't a bigger county. They're a much bigger county, but.
I think that's going on everywhere. Because I was over on the Front Range, there's a help wanted sign in every building you go in. And then there's panhandlers standing on the street. Can you give me money to help my kids and pay my rent? I'm thinking, you go get a job.
It's everywhere. So employers are, you know, you have to stay competitive to be able to recruit. Employers looking for employees right now than employees looking.
I believe it was Jeffco. One of their things is they don't pay their employees as much as some of their surrounding neighbors do, but the enticement that they've been able to bring people in is because of the 4-day work week. So they're able to, you know, pay less, but hey, look, you get your Fridays off. If you wanted to do something along these lines, we'd recommend that you could start it as early as October 4th. That's a Monday. You would need, and most of the places that we talked to said no, they just did about a month's notice ahead of time and said, this is the way the hours are going to do. They push it out through electronic media, in the newspaper. And again, there's not a lot of, it's one of those non-invasive capital type measures you can do. You're not going to have to spend money to do this. You just do a resolution to change your operating hours, if that is something you want to do. So you could begin almost immediately. Then also the other benefit to it, which none of the people that we surveyed have gone back. Some of them been over a year, 2 years in it. They're not looking at turning back anytime soon. They're just not seeing the customer impact that they had anticipated once everybody kind of got used to, oh, wait, I can go in at 7 a.m. to get my cars tagged, or I can go in at 5 versus coming in on Friday. But you could very easily, it takes a resolution from the commissioners to change the hours. That's all that affects. So, I mean, not that it affects, but there's no cost to changing those hours at any point. So if you got into it and you said, this just really, we're getting, you know, it's just doesn't seem to be working, employees aren't as efficient as we thought they would be, or whatever that case may be, you could always switch back. The big thing is that you would have to evaluate the success of it on a longer term period. So what one of the counties that I talked to said that they took the first 6 months information, evaluated it, and then they went back and they do it every 3 months and say, okay, how is our retention? Are we attracting the people that we want to attract? Our customer satisfaction surveys good? Are customers still being able to access those services online or, through the office? And then evaluate that every 3 months. And if it warrants a change of direction, it's an easier change than spending money or doing something like buying a new widget or a project or something like that. Just some little facts. Again, longer service hours could be offered Monday through Thursday. What that looked like could be anyone's, game. I mean, you could step up and decide how you want to do that, but we would just urge that it be consistent from department to department so that you don't have one opening at 7 and one opening at 8 and one staying open until 5 and one staying open until 6, that be set.
You're talking like the courthouse.
Yeah, yeah, it's public access services.
Are you sure? I mean, we have that now. 4 different elected offices open at different times. Do we have the authority to say what those hours have to be for the other elected offices?
According to Dawn, you set the hours of operation. Now, I don't know if they are able to change. Verona?
The statute says we are open under what you guys consider regular hours. What you guys said is regular business hours, that's what we have to be open. So if you set it 4:10, that's what we have to be open.
It's not currently being complied with across the board.
And that is a problem that I see is because my office is open.
Right.
And the clerk and recorder's not open quite yet. And those people come in, they get upset because I'm open, why aren't they open? And I get that a lot.
That problem would have to be resolved if we did this.
Well, some uniformity, so that it was all the same. So if you came here and had a couple, 2 or 3 functions to do, you could get them all done. And
That was a cheap shot.
But it sounds to me like the staff is overwhelming in favor of this.
Right. I mean, this is what I'm hearing. There really isn't cost savings. In fact, there may be additional costs on the daycare thing if we actually went down that road. But it's an employee retention, it's a benefit almost to the employees. So let's not sell this on a cost saving measure. Because I'm going to tell you, we're going to get clobbered in the community if we do that, in my view.
Well, I think we ought to do a survey, a public survey,
I
and see
agree.
what the taxpayers think and take that into consideration.
I agree.
I agree. I mean, as the EM, I worked 410s and I loved it. And it was a very good benefit. But also, in talking with Alice about this a couple weeks ago, she has programs, things set up that she can't do it. She has to be open 5 days a week. I wasn't aware of the statute for the elected offices, but I was going to bring that up. If we can dictate or not what they do, and then also like the on-call pay, was that included in your
Is that going to
numbers? Yeah, because if we're going to just say, then I agree with your statement, we're not basing it off of savings.
Right.
But savings of 38,000, because I believe DHS, you pay your on-call people, correct? So we're going to have additional.
Yeah, that Friday would be considered a weekend. So it'd be the weekend.
And I wonder about that on Road and Bridge too, is if you're working on 410s, and I'm asking as a question, if you're working on Monday through Friday at their normal hours, and then we get a snowstorm on Friday, which normally they would have been working, then we're paying overtime. Am I understanding that right?
We'll have a split crew, so half of our guys would be Monday, half of them would be Friday.
I got you. Okay.
So, Garfield does just straight 410s Monday through Thursday, and talking to them, they haven't noticed any
They don't get
increase in
snow.
overtime or anything along those lines. And mine is all dependent upon weather. To be honest, I hope we have a ton of overtime because we need it. We need a bad winter.
And I will just say my own personal experience, and this was a generation ago, when the schools first went to 4-day week. I was a retail business owner, and it created a lot of challenges because everybody leaves town for 3 days. Your customer base leaves. Now they were the first ones to do it, if I recall. Hard on the business community, but that's all changed a little bit now with so many already do a 4-day week. But I can guarantee you, if you have an employee who has a kid in school, and the husband, in this case, in my case, could be husband or wife, is on a 4-day week somewhere, that spouse is not going to be working on that Friday for some reason or another. There are hardships on our local business community when you do this. Now, that's still the case because everybody's going to this, I don't know. But I don't think it helps our business community. And I think the sign on Rana's wall about we're here to serve the taxpayers, I agree with Ty. We need to find out what the citizens would rather see. And it's great if we can do it. Employees obviously want it, but we're here to serve those citizens. So we ought to see what their temperature is on this, as far as I'm concerned. And they may be ready to do it these days. Maybe our culture's changed that much. I don't know.
Remember that cost savings is really only based off of if you have employees who then take the 4-8 or 4-9
Right.
schedule, right? So this totally goes out the door if everyone's still 4-10.
This isn't about
Yeah.
cost.
I mean, that number there, when we go back to, cost savings,
Mhm.
that is
That's an estimate.
dependent upon, okay, I want to go forward with this. My department head or elected official allows me to go to a 32-hour-a-week schedule or a 36-hour-a-week schedule. That's where you're going to see that.
And
And that would be the only time.
the question I've got on that, James, let's say we had that 25 employees, FTEs decide to do that. And they do it halfway through the year and then they decide, oh, I gotta work 4-10s. I can't be doing these 4-8s or 4-9s.
And how disruptive is that? When you got employees that, it's pretty easy to argue that if we could live without them, if they decide to do that, how do we justify that now? I'm playing devil's advocate, but
I mean, how do you justify a full-time position right now?
yeah, if we can easily justify not being in the future. I'm just throwing everything out there because I think we better do this with our eyes open, but it's clearly what the employees prefer, is what
Similar to, we were looking at the furlough
The furlough day.
anyway, so that doesn't.
we were talking 1 day a month, not 1 day a week.
And really, it's something that came up when we were contacting others, so we just pushed it out there. And
No, I know.
so that survey is from your employees.
Exactly.
It's not from your department heads. And so once again, your department heads are going to then need to say, they would need a say in that too.
Yeah. Oh, well.
So it's, it comes from both sides there. This is.
Well, we need to hear from the constituents. I think that's a good idea, to survey them and see what they think of that and get their pulse on it. I would guess it's probably gonna be about a 50-50 would be my guess. But I don't know.
I don't know where our culture's at on that these days.
I asked the crotchety ones that I knew, like my husband and, some of the old ones, And I kind of expected my husband to be against it, and he was not, and his thought was, because it matches the school, and the parents are gone on Friday to watch.
Laura, it matched his thought that you're gonna be here to help me another day.
Well,
That's probably it.
Not that naive.
Well, CDOT's actually went to a 4-day work schedule year round. And it has helped with their retention, but, with the younger generation, it is something that
The culture.
they really look at as that time. And in the defense of the department, once you get everybody hooked on that schedule, it does make it hard for them to leave because they'll look at the schedule when they go look at another job. And if it's not 4-10s, they're willing to stay for less money working for the county, so.
I wanted to make a comment, because my eligibility workers here in Rio and the eligibility workers in Moffett They do the 4 10-hour days, they do 7 to 5. And what they do in Moffett is they rotate what that day looks like as far as who's gonna be off on what day. And they do the same here in Rio. One thing that I will say, and it just started here in Rio, and I will say this, the attitudes, the wanting to come to work, demeanor has changed dramatically since they've been able to do this. I haven't noticed it, because one of the things that I can say, okay, if we're gonna try this, I'm gonna monitor it, I'm gonna watch it, and I wanna make sure that the quality of service that we are providing doesn't suffer. So they know that I go in and I look to make sure that our numbers and, I mean, we just want to know more. So I want to make sure we still provide that same level of care. And they're hitting the numbers right on. So I agree that if we could do something of this nature, because they all asked me, was I coming to this? So I'm like, oh, y'all looking here, huh? So this is a big interest to us, and I can really see it being a factor in retaining employees. I know it's a big deal for the eligibility side, and I haven't asked them specifically, but I feel pretty confident that if this was an opportunity that could be offered to on the child welfare side, listen, they already know we're going to be on call. We're already going to have somebody on call on Friday. I mean, so that's the expectation. They know it and they're aware of it. But if they can have another day off, I agree. It's going to help with retaining. It's going to help with recruitment. I won't say his name, but when I was interviewing someone, they said, "Do you want to get off the day there or not?" So it is. I think it's a big draw. I really do.
What does it do to the cost of payroll is now set up on Fridays? Does that change that any?
So you would, yes, it would be moved to payday would be Thursdays. So after thinking through that, currently with payroll, in an 8-hour day, we're usually working longer than an 8-hour day as it is. And so actually, I don't think it's going to affect too much because you've got now a 10-hour day and then you're off on Friday. So now instead of worrying about, okay, you're going to go home early on a Friday because you've already worked your 40 hours or you've got 2 or 3 hours of comp time this week, it should even itself somewhat out. Yeah.
And then there's other people, counties that you've asked, they obviously got a response from their public.
Yes.
Seemed to be overwhelmingly positive.
Overwhelmingly, yeah, that's actually the previous slide. Let me go back here one.
I understand that they're different demographically than us, but.
One of the surveys that was in, I can't remember, it was for Gilbert, Arizona, and I think it was the micro survey, said that 80% in Gilbert, Arizona, 87% of the customers had positive or neutral reactions to it. Again, because of the extended operating hours, you know, as it is now, if you were going to get your, you know, let's say a car tag and you worked for an employer who didn't have Fridays off, you're going to have to take that time off to meet those business hours. Versus if that office was open earlier or later, I could, in a Meeker, of course, and Rangeley, it's so close typically, you could get there by 7:30, you know, close to 8. Or if that was later hours where you said, no, we're going to stay open until 6, you would have your normal time you get off from your job and you could be there at, you know, 5:30 or 6. Again, what those hours look like, it's flexible, but you're picking that up by being able to go in earlier or so before you go to work or after you get off work versus midday. Now, another thing to look at, and Carly, I'm going to have you talk about this, is the difference in the PTO bank.
So with the paid time off, what it was because employees aren't using their Fridays as much for vacation or sick time to maybe go to appointments, is that when they leave, there might be a little higher cost in terms of with paying out vacation. You do not pay out sick day, correct, Janae?
We do after 5 years,
Okay.
percentage based.
Okay.
A maximum of 20% if they've been here 20 years.
Okay. So there were possible some increased paid time off because people aren't using it as much.
Because you've got those 3 days where normally I'd have to take a half a day off to go to the doctor or whatever, where I wouldn't be taking that because I would have that Friday off.
And I think in terms of the community pulse on it, I think it'd be super easy to put together a survey. Janae and the budget office, along with my office, has split the job form subscription. So we could put together some questions out on social media, in the newspaper with a link to the survey, just to get community input as a starting point. Reassess that.
Realize when you do that, I'm playing devil's advocate again here. If it's a link to a survey, you're not gonna get a lot of the older generation's response.
Yeah, and if we want to, we could have handout surveys, you know, you could come in and pick up.
I think it needs to go beyond,
We could always put them in public, you know,
Yeah,
in
a
the
printed
clerk's office, in the treasurer's office, in the assessor's office.
There's a variety of ways to try and reach people.
honestly, for me, the whole ability to come in late or early to get your county business done, as opposed to not being on Friday, is a real, I mean, I have mixed emotions about both, honestly. I can see the upside to being able to come in at 5:30 to get it done, because you didn't get off till 5. I think back when oil and gas was booming, and they were needing access to our clerk's office, the landman and all that stuff, all the time. And maybe it's available online now, so they don't have to have that. I don't know. But there was a time when that would have been a big issue.
That was one of the things that, I want to say, I'm trying to think which one it was that I talked with. I get them all confused because there's so many, but might have been Grand County. I can't remember which. One of them said that their online services went way up. And so people were normally walking in, their volume of online was just like, you know, oh gosh, I can just do the online whenever I want to. And then, so it's a shift in that mentality, similar to Amazon shopping, where you used to go out and have to drive to Grand Junction or Denver to get certain things. You just get it online now, and it gets delivered like Jeff was saying. I mean, it just within, you know, if you're in a big city, that's right then. So that does change your philosophy of how many of us have to do this in person. Right. Certainly the people that don't have computer access would still want to come in, but is that, how long will that continue? You know, what's that lifespan?
Well, old guys die off.
Well, and it's a shift in our culture a little bit, because we did this on the Front Range about 3 months ago. We're actually working 7 days a week over there with Duco. And we split it up where those kids work 4 days a week. And they may work 16 or 18 hours a day in those 4 days a week, but we've actually kept them. When we were trying to work them 5 or 6 days a week, or some of them 7, they'd work 2 or 3 weeks or a month or 3 days and be like, we're gone. And what's happened now, they know they're going to get 3 days off every week, no matter what. Once in a while, you get some of them that'll stay and work 5 days a week or whatever to do that overlap. But it's made a huge difference the last 3 months.
Well, and keep in mind that we posed this as a question of taking Fridays off. You could do still the 410s, but still be open 5 days a week and just stagger your staffing. Again, that would still meet your employees' desire. But again, I guess that
How
is that.
disruptive is that? Is the question.
Well, and I don't think
Anna's office, their staff's too
Not
much.
gonna work for me.
I don't have anybody.
right.
And my employee, she really wants to do the 410. She really wants, if she could find another job that offers 410, I think I would live.
Well, and I mean, there is another upside, and it's those businesses that rely on these weekend workers, this makes them more available. And there is that kind of businesses out there.
I'm
Even
thinking of the other places that have the 410s. White River Electric are their 410s, the school.
Hey, did you get a hold of Route County? I know they had gone to 410s, but did they go back?
They have, I believe what they're doing is they're doing a 410s, but on a 5 day a week schedule.
Oh,
Like you just,
So they're staffing, yeah, for 5 days, and just their employees are doing
when they
410s.
started that, it was for budgetary
Mm-hmm.
reasons. You know, they changed it, I think.
Yeah.
where we have such small staffs, like in Rona's office, Leaf's office, Eddie's office, Charlie's office.
Yeah, we have a lot of one person.
Yeah, well, but where there's a one-person office, two-person office, that staggering them isn't an option.
Well, since we're not doing it to save money, you might offer that as an option. If you feel, like Mr. Planner or whoever you are, you feel you need to stay open, don't go to 410s.
As long as that customer knows what your schedule's gonna be ahead of time. There's gotta be a.
Well, and see, that was one of the big things too that came out, was that the consistency isn't here now. And so that was one of the things that kind of appeared through several different threads, was it would be nice if it was all consistent. And that was your employees asking that it be consistent, not, you haven't even surveyed again, this is the first step.
It has to be an all-in deal, I think.
That customer has to know what those hours are, because there's an expectation.
I think too, you brought up an interesting question. If the county went as a major employer,
Mm-hmm.
how would that work into the conformity of the community? Because Meeker and Rangeley, I'm assuming, are two completely different places. There's probably not many 410 places in Rangeley, are there?
School, I think, is school and Moonlight.
Oh, okay, so
The same as here then.
same as here. I did not realize that, okay. So, yeah, maybe it is.
And the mine, Lee.
What impact,
Oftentimes the mine does it. They'll do a 410.
I think they are.
what impact does this have on our rec district if we did that?
I think from the rec center, you're actually going to see some relief on Friday. There's a lot of kids who spend 8 hours a day at the rec center. And it's used as a daycare, the swimming pool.
Mhm.
So I think you would
Yeah, all the
actually
services.
see some relief from that. Their pool is not gonna be a daycare center. And that's maybe not the best option for it to be the daycare center.
You're saying the 5-day-a-weekers are using that.
A babysitter.
Drop the kids off.
I just, as a major employer, we gotta think about how it impacts everyone. We wanna do it with our eyes open, that's all.
Charlie, could we do a handout flyer with the post office where we gave those to put in people's mailboxes for this survey as well?
We could, just remember last year we did the big one.
I know.
We're doing a much smaller one this year, a smaller scale with the survey. But last year, I want to say it cost about $2,000.
If we just had a postcard,
If we did a postcard, it would probably be significantly cheaper. I just can't give you a price.
major.
But I think that way, at least we'd know, if people had an opinion, at least we'd reach them.
And then that way, it would have, much like the QR code that you can scan with your phone, a link to the survey, we can put a link on our website very simply, where.
I think you need to
Tech savvy.
distinguish, are they a business owner? Is it a retail business? Some of those kind of things they can just check.
Just give a different perspective.
You don't have to say who they are.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we get that information
Let's
from
do
our
that.
the constituents. I think that'll give us
Firm
a
us
pretty
up.
good idea where we want to
I
go.
mean, I think we're here and the employees are overwhelmingly in favor.
Like I say, I've seen it work firsthand the last 3 months. We were losing them kids like that. I mean, 2 a week. And the last 3 months, we haven't lost one.
Now, one thing I do not have yet, but I anticipate having, is Dylan was pulling the numbers on actual traffic counts. So we'll actually get a, I didn't see it, I must have missed it.
What's traffic?
It basically shows,
Yeah.
though, in all honesty, that
I'll let you.
all my data is the same.
So the same foot traffic.
Friday afternoon.
Well, and that's part of it, guys. We're almost closed on Friday afternoons anyway. That's just the fact.
Well, that's part of the point, right? And that's where some of the, some employees are already seeing that, where,
And they're using their vacation, they're using this, they're using that.
and the reason they're doing that is because they're not busy, right? So they know that they can take off Fridays because, one, they can get all their work done. And, they're busy Monday through Thursday, and so you see a bunch of people taking Fridays off to go and do vacation or sick leave or whatever it is.
So Ronnie, you're the only elected office here, as a surveyor, and I don't.
You're here.
Well, but I mean, I'm different. I don't, but you're open to the public. What's your thought on that?
I'm the one that says, I've always noticed on Fridays, it is dead Friday afternoon, there's nobody in this courthouse. You can hear pin drop, there's
the crickets are chirping. There's nobody.
Well, you could still do, you know, again, there's no one right way. I mean, if it's something where you say, okay, we're going to close Friday at noon, what do those hours, what kind of impact does that make? You know, if you know, Friday at noon is where we're going to drop that and we're going to pick those extra hours up somewhere else, or, you know, maybe an hour earlier, hour later, and then.
You work 4 9s and then a 4 hour.
So maybe on that community survey, and I think you can still do this on a small postcard, put some of those options out there and say, what would best service you as a community, as a citizen of Rio Blanco County? There's lots of options.
Mornings, there will be, you know, a little bit of traffic, depending on Friday mornings, but after 12 o'clock, done.
Well, and Ronna, people are gonna figure that out, that this building's open from Monday to Thursday. I mean, you're gonna get some people that aren't gonna like that for the short term. But after it gets done, people are gonna be like, oh, okay. They're gonna go head up here on Friday and go, oh, yes.
But
Let's do that for myself. I would love for the court, not that I use it that much, you know, like for personal stuff, but I would love to be able to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and go get my license plate.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
I think a lot of people.
Because it's not like you're gonna find a big line at Rangeley or Meeker.
Yeah.
It's not like there's gonna be 5 people standing there, 1 or 2 of you. I mean, it'd just be handy.
My main point is, let's not sell this as something it's not. This is because the employees would like it. It's not a cost saving measure. Because that irritates folks when you try and disguise it as something it's not.
Well, and we tried to, you know, make that very clear that there would be a, you know, like $2,100 savings for facilities, but because we have a very efficient building.
Yeah, there's not that.
Yeah, it's not going to be the huge difference. But are you going to make that up with your training expense, which I don't know that Laura's ever broken that out to what we spend training an employee, but is that something that, you know, you can make up costs that way?
The thing we can watch is retention of employees as we move forward.
And recruitment.
If we do go down this road. All right, anything else?
How long does that take to do a survey?
I think it's gonna take some time to develop what the questions are. I'm sure there's,
Like
you
a
know,
week,
a Google
a month?
search. But I think we could have something published, maybe not in every mailbox next week, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Give 'em a couple
the
weeks to
training
respond.
and The EDDM will take a little bit longer, but once the actual survey is developed, I think it could go pretty quick. And then just link it back to our website, link it to the newspaper.
You're still on your October 4th, is that what it was before?
Believe even if.
Let's not start committing to anything.
1st of September, we could move forward, October, November, somewhere in there.
Well, oh, I'm sorry, when did I jump the gun? What?
Don't start committing to any date, please.
Oh,
No, belief, let's say.
Don't be scheduling
We
stuff.
take another month to do this survey.
Yeah.
And we get it done in September sometime. So it's not a rush thing. We can visit about it and make a decision in September or the 1st of October.
Well, and this can be a budget discussion that you're going to be having with your departments too, as you go, you know, I mean, that's a perfect place to be able to say, what would that impact, you know, the department head? How could you meet those demands?
Well, and for me, Vic, I'm gonna, for me, the 8s and the 9s are out. I think if we're gonna 4 10s and look across the board. And I'm not trying to be unsympathetic, but my whole life I went in the dark and came home. And
Literally. And put,
I won't really get tired at Thursday because I haven't ate lunch. Or, you know, I'm pretty sure people can make her 4 days a week, 10 hours a day. So I don't mean to be unsympathetic there, but I just,
Chief Sean, and you didn't even hear
I did, I heard you.
it. Okay, anything else?
That's it. So I think staff has direction.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.